Beautiful. They, we opened that up. I wouldn't do it because that water's too deep. Go down to the bottom.
Barbara, what time tomorrow? You know we got there.
Always make it look pretty. Whole lot to read though. Between the two of them. Then we got the 727. Why don't you just round it up to 728? I like even numbers. Holy smart, how are you? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Joines, Mayor of Winston-Salem. It's my pleasure to call to order this meeting of the Winston-Salem City Council and ask the city clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Joyner.
Present.
Councilmember Clark. Here. Councilmember Andrew Bowen.
Here.
Councilmember Scipio.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams. Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember Hall.
Present.
And Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please join the city council and me in a moment of silence? Thank you so much. Would you join the city council and me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize our Sergeant at Arms tonight, Lieutenant Ashley. Thank you for being with us tonight. And our Fire Marshal tonight is Bradley Watson. Thank you for being here as well. There he is, right there. Let me turn the meeting over to Mr. Pate for his update.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just several things tonight. First, let me ask ACM King if he would recognize our new Fleet Services Director.
Yep, glad to. Thanks, Pat. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. I would like to introduce Angus Thomas. Angus, if you wouldn't mind standing up. Angus has been selected as our new Fleet Services Director. So you may remember we have had that position that's been vacant since Nick Geis left us early last year. And so Angus has been serving as the interim director since that time and has done a great job with us. Angus has been with the city since 2012, started with the fleet department as a fleet attendant and has held all the positions all the way up to his former fleet manager position before transitioning into the interim director role. So we are very excited about the expertise and leadership Angus brings to the Fleet Services Director position. So glad to have him on board.
Welcome, Angus.
Welcome, Angus.
And then I'd like to ask ACM Voida to introduce our new interim Human Resources Director.
Yeah, so if you want to stand up, we have Dr. Keena Cofield-Jones joined us a couple of weeks ago as our interim Human Resources Director. We had some internal staff that have been keeping the department running, and they've done a great job, but we were lucky enough to have Keena join us. She has over 30 years of HR government experience, so we have reposted that position externally. It's on the street now, but just very thankful to have Dr. Jones helping us out. So thank you.
Welcome,
Welcome,
Dr.
Dr. Jones.
And then I'm going to call on our Transportation Director, Jeff Fansler, to give a quick update on the status of the Peters Creek Brewer pedestrian crossing.
Ms. Fansler.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of City Council, Jeff Fansler, Director of Transportation. As you may recall, I stood before you in January talking about some of the inquiries we had related to Parkland High School, the new Sheets development, and navigating across Peters Creek Parkway. And if you recall, I shared a graphic. If this goes, I might need to just advance the slide. This doesn't seem to be working. There we go. If you recall, I showed a graphic like this, highlighting some of the initiatives in the area, some of our funded projects, some of the projects we continue to pursue funding for. And then shown in yellow there, if you'll just hit the advance button, it should show up as a little icon there that indicates what we committed to before school, which was to improve the crossing at Peters Creek and Brewer, allowing folks to be able to cross Peters Creek Parkway with the protection of a traffic signal. And so since that time, of course, it's all good transportation projects. They're very complicated. They involve probably more parties than maybe they should. But we had to go work with NCDOT to gain some approvals because Peters Creek Parkway, as you've heard me mention many times, is not the city-maintained facility. Slide, please. But I'm happy to say today, this is what you may see. This was captured this afternoon by the DOT drone. And what you see there is fully actuated all the way around pedestrian traffic signals and the available, the accommodating markings to allow for a pedestrian to navigate the corridor. And to orient yourself, if you'll advance, it should indicate, kind of just orient yourself what we're dealing with there. Parkland High School being in the southwest quadrant there, and the Sheets development in the southeast quadrant there. Excuse me, southeast, southwest, you get what I'm saying. But the bottom line there is navigating Peters Creek Parkway with the protection of a traffic signal can now be done at all four corners of the intersection. And just to show some of the improvement there, as I mentioned, we had to work with NCDOT for, express design on this. Typically, these designs take much longer, but I'm happy to say that NCDOT really stood strong and stood up for us. They understood the call from this committee, from the comments we've heard from our community, and allowed us to really expedite this work. So just some of those will work there. If you advance the slides, you'll see this is the connection that Sheets put in with the sidewalk on their frontage as a UDO requirement through our site plan development process. And then if you advance again, you'll just see some of the treatments there across the intersection, navigating there. You see the pedestrian signals in the background there with the markings there in the foreground. And then just a few more pictures to highlight some of the work. On each corner, if you'll advance the slide, you'll notice this is the treatment you'll see there with the push buttons and the pedestrian heads. Again, this is under the protection of a traffic signal, allows you to push the button and cross. So all that to say, today, if you'll advance one more time, this is what you'll see, and you can navigate all four corners with an actuated traffic signal that is independent of vehicular movement and allows you to navigate that intersection much safer than you used to. So there's still some work to be done. You heard me mention that we're still pursuing funding for those missing links of sidewalks on both Peters Creek Parkway and Brewer Road. And then we'll continue to advocate for those through our MPO and other funding sources as they come available. But the bottom line is I appreciate the manager giving me a moment just to update this committee on what we've been working on. And I'm happy to say that we had a before school starts in August commitment. And as I stand here today, you can go out there and hit the button and cross Peters Creek Parkway. So we met our goal, and I'm happy to report back. And I stand ready for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fansler. Any questions, Mr. Fansler? That's great news. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Joe. We'll continue on. The Water Utility Customer Confidence Report is now available if you're interested. For more than 20 years, the drinking water in Forsyth County, Winston-Salem has met or surpassed all water quality standards established by the EPA. That excellent record continues today with the 2024 Water Quality Report, which was recently published by the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities, and it is available online if you want to get the particulars of that. So thanks to our Utilities Department for continuing to provide us with excellent water and water quality. A couple of events I want to mention. I'll speak about this again later in the meeting, but the Budget and Performance Management Department will be providing the public with a couple of opportunities to learn more about the proposed budget that you'll hear about tonight. The first one is tomorrow, May 20th, from 5:30 to 7 at the Carl Russell Community Center. And there'll be another one on May 27th from 5:30 to 7 at the Little Creek Community Center. The Neighborhood Services Department has been holding some open houses, and they have one more left from 6 to 8 on Tuesday, May the 20th at the Sprague Street Community Center. The department's provided the open house series as an opportunity for the public to learn more about the department's services, which include lending opportunities for homeowners, code enforcement, affordable housing, and more, and a variety of other services. The Office of Sustainability will host its monthly Food for Thought educational series on pantry management and reducing food waste on Thursday, May 22nd at the Crisis Control. Class is free, but they ask participants to sign up, and you can go on our website to do so. The Community Appearance Awards Program will also be held coming up on May 28th. It'll be at the Old Salem Visitor Center on Wednesday, May 28th at 11 a.m. Dr. Tracy Ryder, an associate professor of architecture at North Carolina State University, will present on the importance of sustainable design. The Community Appearance Awards Program is free and open to the public, but you again are asked to RSVP, this time to Daniel Rankin at the Planning and Development Services Department. And again, you can find that on the website. And then just if anyone's interested, our Employee Medical has scheduled a city employee blood drive on Wednesday the 28th from 10 to 2:30 at Employee Medical. A couple of recognitions. In addition to the new staff members we recognized a little earlier, May is Mental Health and Awareness Month, and talks about dealing with the impact mental health has on many people in our community. The Winston-Salem Fire Department offers residents who are experiencing a mental health crisis services through the Behavioral Evaluation and Response Team, affectionately the BEAR team. And you can learn more about that team and their services on our website. They just recently celebrated their 2-year anniversary with the city, and they've done thousands of calls in that time. I think over 4,000, 5,000 calls. WISTA and TransAid made a triumphant return to the 2025 Rodeo. They say it's pronounced rodeo, but they don't spell it that way. Bus competition. Standard performances from all 4 participants. The team earned top honors and made their mark in the largest North Carolina state rodeo in history, which featured 94 skilled competitors from across the state. Representing WISTA and TransAid were operators Anthony Moselle, Justin Hayes, Jose Navarra, and Corcha Glenn. Their hard work, professionalism, and dedication to the craft of safe, efficient transit services were on full display across both regional and state competitions. And finally, as the last reminder, city offices will be closed on May 26th for the Memorial Day holiday. With that, we'll stand ready to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Pate? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Pate. Appreciate that. We'll now go to our agenda, and I should point out that the meeting is being televised live tonight on TV 13 and the city's YouTube page, and it will be replayed Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. and again Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Copies of our agenda as well as videos of previous meetings are always available online at the city's website, and just click on the watch meetings online option. The agenda is comprised of two parts, the consent agenda and the general agenda. It's always the practice of the council to take the consent agenda as the first order of business. Items on this agenda have been unanimously recommended by a committee of the city council or are being submitted in accordance with established city procedure. There will be no discussion of the items on this agenda unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered individually. Items not removed from the consent agenda will be enacted with one motion. Council members, are there any items you wish to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Mayor Pro Tem Adams and seconded by Councilmember Hall. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no, and that is unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll now go to the general agenda, which includes a resolution opposing Senate Bill 257. There are two public hearings for zoning petitions. There's discussion and approval of a city service board appointment, as well as the proposed city budget, not for adoption, but for presentation. When the public hearing is called, persons in the council chamber will be given an opportunity to speak. If there is opposition to the public hearing zoning cases, the proponents and opponents will each be given 15 minutes for presentation and 3 minutes for rebuttal. If no one wishes to speak, then the public hearing will be closed and the city council will consider the item. May we have item G1, please?
Item G1, resolution of the Winston-Salem City Council opposing Senate Bill 257-2025 Appropriations Act, Section 43.5 Powell Bill funds.
Thank you. Mr. Tash, you're going to tell us how bad this will hurt us?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. Unfortunately, yes. So the Senate Appropriations Bill that passed out of the Senate and went to the House included within it removing Powell Bill funding for all cities in North Carolina with a population above 150,000 in the biennium. For us, that's roughly $8.7 million a year times 2 years. So you know what that can do to us. Powell Bill funding is used both for our street resurfacing program from a capital perspective in terms of our contracted resurfacing, and it also supports our internal programs from a vegetation management perspective, streets maintenance, as well as sidewalk maintenance. So we are looking at the potential for more than $17 million worth of reduced funding over the course of the biennium. And as the city manager has said previously, those things that get defunded in Raleigh in one cycle often find themselves being defunded for a much longer period of time than we originally anticipated. If this funding were to be cut, there would have to be substantial cuts both to the operating and capital budgets that we will be looking at over the course of the next few weeks, or we would need to raise additional resources locally or tap significantly into general fund balance in order to make those differences. So the opposition to that section of the Senate budget is very specific to Powell Bill funding, and again would affect 6 or 7 of the cities in North Carolina in addition to us. Stand ready for any questions you have related.
Thank you. Any questions to Mr. Tash, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Mr. Tash, could you go ahead again and state what areas specifically on the CARF as to what this money affects for every city that's going to be defunded? The one where it tells us about, you said the paving and the resurfacing, street maintenance.
Yeah, so if you look at the Powell Bill memo that is attached, several bullet points, these come directly from the Powell Bill report. So paving and resurfacing, both in-house and contracted, general streets maintenance that is done, snow and ice removal, curb and gutter installation and repair, bridge maintenance is one that we have used. The Lakeview Drive Bridge is an example of that. Traffic controls, as well as sidewalk installation and maintenance. And again, it's roughly $8.7 million a year. We can accumulate it and spend it at different amounts, but it would affect you over the course of 2 years in the range of $17 million.
One more question, Mayor.
Please.
And Mr. Tash, if this goes through, where would we get the money from, or how would we be able to finance these particular items that we've always had this funding for?
in working with the city manager, again, you really have two choices. You can cut services, but in order to maintain those, realistically, you would be looking potentially at an increase to the property tax rate north of 2 cents annually just to cover those.
Wow, thank you.
Significant. Thank you. Mr. Clark, you want to make a motion on this one?
If there's a second, I would like to make
All
a
right, sure.
comment. I move for approval of item G1.
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Yeah. The Powell money, when you buy gasoline, you pay tax. It's actually a little sticker, I think, on the pump that tells you how much. And it's called the Powell money, named after Mr. Powell, whoever he was. But it goes to all the cities that have roads, and that's most all of them, as well as state participates in it. And I understand the need for additional revenue in the western part of the state. But I think the answer would be to take a little bit from everybody and kind of share the pain versus picking on 6 cities and stripping us of 100% of our money. So I offer that comment. I'm not insensitive to the needs, but I certainly disagree, particularly the state who gets, I think, most of it. You know, if everybody, again, shares the pain, nobody gets hurt too bad. But for us to take an $18 million hit would be astronomical. And with that.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you, Councilwoman Clark. Item G2, please.
Item G2, public hearing and consideration of zoning petition of Grandview, Inc. from RS9 to GBL. Property is located on the north side of Yadkinville Road between Transo Road and Stimpson Drive. Located in the Northwest Ward, Planning Board recommends denial of petition, and it was continued from April 21st, 2025.
Before we do the public hearing, I'm going to ask our Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Murphy, to give us a report of the Planning Board, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening again. I'll pull the PowerPoint up and we'll see if the clicker works now. This is a request of Grandview, Inc. to rezone 8.17 acres of property located on the north side of Yadkinville Road between Transu and Stimpson Drive, located in the Northwest Ward. The request is to rezone the property to special use limited rezoning is what the request is, from RS9 to GBL, General Business Limited Use. And the two specific uses requested are storage services retail internal and storage services retail external. This is a subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area Plan map. It is located within GMA 3. It is located just to the west of the Yadkinville Road Grandview Club Activity Center, which is a commercial area in that area and in the area plan that's recommended for commercial use. This is the subject property highlighted in yellow. Again, you see it is located on the north side of Yadkinville in between Transu and Stimpson Drive. The commercial property directly to the west, the GBS, the LB, the HBS, the LB, that is all part of the Yadkinville Grandview Activity Center that we'll see on the area plan map next. One more map. This is the subject property highlighted, outlined in yellow. It's primarily wooded. Again, on the west side of Transu, you do see Mickle Lake and a series of other lakes that go up to the north. So there is a dam that's located at the southern portion of that lake. This is the West Suburban Area Plan update, which was adopted by council back in 2018. You do see the Yadkinville Road, I said Grandview Club, Yadkinville Road, Transu Road Activity Center, there indicated with the dark outline. On the north side of Yadkinville Road is the commercial area. On the south side is a area for office and attached residential, such as townhomes. You see the subject property is located just to the east of that with a recommendation of single-family residential 0 to 8 units per acre. We'll go to a few photos of the site and the surrounding area. This is looking east along Yadkinville Road. Subject property is to the left on this image. You see the zoning sign. This is looking west along Yadkinville Road. The subject property is to the right. That is Stimson Drive there in the background. And again, on the south side, that would be the south side of Yadkinville Road. This is looking west from the subject property, looking kind of northwest at the intersection of Mickle Road and Dixiana Drive. Subject property would be in the background of the photographer, behind the photographer. This is looking into the subject property from Mickle Road, so this is looking south. And this is looking south across Yadkinville Road from the subject property. That's a single-family home that is across the street on the south side of Yadkinville. Again, since this is a limited use request, there is no site plan that is proposed as part of this. In summation, the request is inconsistent with both Forward 2045 and the West Suburban Area Plan update, which recommends concentrating commercial land uses within activity centers. The West Suburban Area Plan update specifically recommends single-family residential 0 to 8 units per acre for the subject property. Approving this request could promote commercial strip development along Yadkinville Road heading further west. And approving the request would result in commercial encroachment into a single-family neighborhood. Again, you've seen the images. This is in an area recommended for single-family, and it's just south of the lake that's associated with a single-family development. The Planning Board heard this item at their March 13th, 2025 public hearing. There was significant opposition with multiple speakers at that meeting. The opposition was concerned that the project did not comply with the area plan, that there was no site plan included. They were concerned about stormwater issues with the development, the potential reduction of property values, and potential impacts associated with the existing dam. Following the public hearing, the Planning Board did vote 5-2 to recommend denial of this request to the council. Since the Planning Board meeting, the petitioner has volunteered some additional conditions in discussing this with some of the neighbors. The added conditions include preventing driveway access to the site from Mickle Road, requiring brick construction materials along the Yadkinville and Transu Road frontages, and requiring additional metal fencing to be installed along Yadkinville Road and Transu Road, and that would be consistent with this exhibit. Again, all of these changes have been incorporated into the written consent to conditions in your packet and to the special use permit in your packet, should you choose to recommend approval or not recommend approval. To approve this, these conditions would become part of that approval. With that, I stand ready to answer any questions.
Any questions to Mr. Murphy? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. Is this the site where the golf course used to be?
No, Mayor Pro Tem, that is a little bit further to the east.
Okay.
If we go back to this image here, the Transu. Well, it's doing me some good, but it's not doing you any good because it's not on your screen. The Transu and Yadkinville Road intersection is on the east side of the subject property. If you went back down east towards Renolda, about between a quarter and a half mile, that is where Grandview Club Road comes out into Yadkinville, and the golf course was on the east side of Grandview Club Road. But you're in the vicinity.
Yeah, and the lake and the water. I know that there have been issues down there for years about the water, the flooding. And how does all of that?
Stormwater management in and of itself would be a requirement whenever they would come through for permitting. There is a condition of approval in your packet in the written consent conditions and the special use permit that would prohibit development, I want to say on the first 250 or 300 feet of the property coming from the west to the east, so like underneath the dam. So it would prevent development there that would be in a high hazard area. So that portion is addressed through the condition. Actual stormwater management would be handled through permitting if this were to be approved. So they would have to go through stormwater as part of their permitting process, and they couldn't discharge more than the rate that they're currently discharging.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Any other questions, Mr. Clark?
The additional conditions, the brick veneer and the fence, were those cycled back through the planning board?
They were not. They were things that the petitioner and the attorney for the petitioner worked with the neighbors on and offered additional conditions. So they actually ask us to revise the written consent to conditions, but that's not atypical. Sometimes that happens either at this meeting or between the time from the planning board and now based on things that they have heard. My opinion is that those, again, it's my opinion, that those conditions, were they to go back to the planning board, would not alter the recommendation.
I'm just surprised you didn't cycle it through again, because what we're asking to vote on is not what the planning board voted on. Correct.
That's 100% correct. I mean, I will defer to the attorney. There's not a requirement that they vote. I mean, in other words, there are oftentimes conditions that are added between the planning board and the elected body based on testimony that they heard and or negotiations with the neighbors.
Okay, this is a public hearing. We have a number of folks signed up to speak on it. You would have the proponents and opponents would each have 15 minutes. For the proponents, Rennie Adcock. All right, sounds good. If you'd give your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council, my name is Nick Blackwood, 804 Green Valley Road in Greensboro, here on behalf of the petitioner. With me this evening, Rennie Adcock, who's the HOA president for the neighboring Mickle Dam Homeowners Association. Also have Garrett Neal, who's our civil engineer, and Matt Kostelik, who's the developer for this project. Do we have our presentation materials available? Okay. And Mr. Murphy covered this in his presentation, so I'll briefly fly through this slide. Just wanted to highlight the zoning conditions that we proposed to address specific concerns heard from neighboring property owners at the planning board meeting. You can see those underlined. Initially, when we submitted this application, we had a singular condition which prohibited any use under the GB zoning district except for our proposed self-storage use. So everything else that you see on our list of zoning conditions was added in response to feedback that we heard from neighbors at neighborhood meetings. We held 2 neighborhood meetings, which I'll get into later in the presentation. And then again, the underlying conditions were zoning conditions added in response to concerns heard at the planning board meeting. And we'll have a slide coming up in a few minutes showing an illustrative sketch plan, and I'll reference back to some of these conditions. I think they'll be easier to see and understand on that sketch plan. So this slide, what we wanted to highlight with these highlighted areas, you'll see, so the subject property highlighted in red, just west of Transu Road, the activity center that was referenced during staff's presentation in blue. It's a mix of fairly various intensity commercial uses. You've got a grocery store anchored retail center. There's another strip center to the west closer to our property, some professional office space to the south of Yadkinville Road. And then what you see highlighted in green, those are several hundred new homes that have been permitted and approved for construction. The lots have already been platted. That community is under development as we speak. So just wanted to highlight some of the existing commercial activity and some of the growth in the area near this Yadkinville-Transu intersection. So as I referenced, this is an illustrative sketch plan, and this is not a site plan specific request. So we are not bound by this site plan. However, what we wanted to show with this sketch plan is an overlay of how our written zoning conditions are going to impact our site plan when we get to that stage in the process. So that just by virtue of this not being a site plan specific request, that does not do away with our obligation to prepare and submit a site plan for TRC review and approval. Our land use and the zoning determination is just not bound by that particular site plan. So what you may see some alterations to, configuration of the buildings and the footprints, but what you see in red, start to the north. So that's a zoning condition where we are maintaining an 80-foot buffer between our developed area and the Mickle Road neighborhood to the north, to the west, and I will let Rennie add to this later in our presentation. As Mr. Murphy alluded to, we have included a zoning condition to prohibit any development 300 feet within 300 feet of the eastern margin of Stimson Drive right-of-way. So what we're trying to accomplish with that zoning condition is a preservation of the wooded area. In early discussions with the HOA, they had concerns about their dam. It's a privately owned, privately maintained dam. They're subject to state inspections annually. So they had concerns, not necessarily with respect to our project, but any development of this property as it would impact their dam. And again, I'll let Rennie speak to that later. But our project works without need for development of that western portion of property. So to provide some assurance to that homeowners association, we wanted to include a zoning condition confirming that we're not going to disturb any of that area within 300 feet of the Simpson Drive right-of-way. You'll also see the dashed red line along Yadkinville and Transu, showing the approximate fence location. That was a zoning condition added after the planning board meeting that was referenced previously. So the whole purpose of this sketch is just to give you a better understanding of how our written zoning conditions overlaid over the property will impact our site design during that site planning process.
Council, if I could just interject just for a quick second, I appreciate the reference to the sketch plan. Remember, this is a limited use request and there's no site plan attached to this. So I understand the reference is for illustrative purposes, but just understand anything you're seeing on here that's offered is not in those written conditions. We have no ability to hold the petitioner to that. So just want to make that distinction that this is an illustrative plan. Typically with limited use cases, we don't get into this kind of discussion. So just want to make that clear for the record.
Thank you, Mr. King.
And that's correct. And what we're trying to show here is what you're seeing in the red crosshatch area that more or less outlines our self-imposed development restrictions by virtue of those written zoning conditions. What you see in the southeastern portion where the buildings are laid out, that's the area subject to change when we go through site planning, and that may involve some rotating of the buildings, layout and things like that, but nothing significant as far as the actual use of the property. And again, just for illustrative purposes, this is actually a very similar facility located here in Winston, just to give you an idea of what the final product would look like as intended by Mr. Kostelik, if zoning is approved and he closes on the property. And one of the primary concerns that we heard from neighbors, and again, I'll get into our neighborhood outreach component here in a second, was existing traffic on Transu and Yadkinville, particularly during the morning and afternoon hours when Reagan High School is coming into session and when folks are going home. So what I wanted to show with this slide, and the top figure, that 373 trips per day that you see, that's a figure taken from your staff report. As currently zoned, the property is entitled for development of up to 39 lots. And that traffic figure, the 373 trips per day, that is in connection with those 39 single-family lots as the property could be developed today. So in hearing that traffic was one of the primary concerns of neighbors, existing traffic, wanted to include this slide just to reiterate that this is the proposed self-storage use is a very low traffic generator. During the AM and PM peak hours, we're looking at about 13 trips in and out of this facility, and 74 daily trips. So in comparison to what you're seeing with the as permitted 373 daily trips, if this were to be developed for single family use, we feel that our proposed self-storage use is a better fit for this area given the existing traffic concerns. We did hold 2 neighborhood meetings. We had a preliminary discussion with planning staff before we submitted an application. We understood that this was an active area, and this may be a zoning case that neighbors took some interest in. So before we submitted any zoning application, we held a preliminary Zoom meeting with folks within a 1,000-foot radius. So we enhanced the mailing radius, wanted to get a good idea, a good picture of what folks in the area would think about this. That's when we met Rennie, and we developed a good relationship with Rennie and his homeowners association. Again, the impacts to the dam, traffic, and just general aesthetic impacts on neighboring properties were the 3 primary concerns that we heard during that initial meeting. Once we submitted the zoning application, we held an in-person meeting. Those same 3 concerns were the primary concerns that we heard at that meeting. But what those meetings allowed us to do was work with Rennie and his homeowners association and come to a point where we think this is a best-case scenario for our development and for those neighbors in the Mickle Dam community. So with this slide, and I'll ask Rennie to come up and join me now. So what you're seeing again in red, that's the subject property. What you see in yellow is that privately owned, privately maintained dam that Rennie's Homeowners Association takes care of.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Rennie Adcock. I live at 3440 Town. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association for the property directly above this property in red. When we first heard about rezoning, of course, we were very concerned. And we gathered as a community and we talked about how all the property around us is being sold and developed. We thought about all the things that could be going into this space, and we as a community have decided this is the best case scenario for us. The purpose of our homeowners association is to maintain and protect our lake and our dam. We came together in 2002, and I've lived there for 25 years. We have acre lots above surrounding the lake. We pay dues, and our goal is to manage the lake and its property. We have yearly inspections by the state. What we appreciate so much about this project is that the developer is interested in working closely with us with our concerns. They are willing to give 1/3 of this property right below the dam to keep it trees, nature. That goes along with a lot of the city plans and goals to keep natural spaces natural. And it also protects anything below the dam. So that's very interesting to us. We would manage and oversee that property below the dam. Our goal is to keep it trees, just like it is right now, natural area. Something else they have said that they will do is give an 80-foot buffer between us and this storage unit on the corner. I went and counted out what 80 feet does. It's a nice bit of buffer between our neighborhood and this new project. We were concerned about what it would look like. We said we'd love natural colors, not neon signs and stuff like that. They've worked very closely in telling us how it will blend with the neighborhood. We're very concerned about the traffic on Transu and Yadkinville Road. It's a very busy area with the school traffic. This particular project is a low-impact traffic project. I think probably the lowest type of traffic you get is from a cemetery, which is right on the other side of this property. Storage units probably the next lowest. We like keeping the traffic as low as possible. I'm trying to think some other things that we have found to be important. So basically, our community in our homeowner association is 100% unified in saying this, for this community, is the best case scenario. Back in 2013, there was a petition to make it multifamily use. We fought that. We got over 300 signed petitions saying this is not a good idea. We feel liable for that lake And the more foot traffic you have going around the lake, the more liability we have. We want to keep that foot traffic down. It's exactly a mile around the lake, and we have people walk that every single day. You put a bunch of homes down there, you have all those kids who are coming up to the lake. That becomes a liability for us. So for all those reasons, we think this is a best case scenario for that property. And Councilmember Hall, we appreciate your site visit. You came out and looked at what we were talking about and discussed it and showed real interest. So we're glad you're our ward representative.
Thank you, Mr. Eckhart. Mr. Neal had signed up. Do you want him to speak now, or?
I think Garrett will speak in rebuttal and address specific
Okay.
questions of the council.
Anything else you want to add for?
Sure, yeah, just a couple of other points with the 2 minutes we have remaining. Wanted to touch on the comprehensive plan and the area plan, understanding staff's recommendation and the call for this property to be low-density, single-family use. We do feel like there are some points in that area plan that align with what we're proposing here, namely preserving a substantial amount of environmentally sensitive forested area. As you heard from Rennie, it is a sensitive area environmentally. His homeowners association has concerns not only with our potential development, but any development of that property. And I think that our ability, by virtue of our self-storage use, to carve out that western third of our property really makes a big difference as far as his homeowners association's comfort level and our ability to preserve a significant portion of that property as undisturbed area. This is a low-intensity commercial use that will serve as a transition of sorts between the existing activity center, that grocery store anchored retail center, and some of the existing single-family neighborhoods to the west of this site. And with that, happy to answer any questions of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Any questions, Mr. Blackwood? All right, thank you. We'll hear from the opponents now. You would have 30 minutes. 30, 15. Sorry. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr.
Notice everybody went like, what?
Ryan Doval, please.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor Joyce. I promise I won't take all 30 minutes that I was originally given. I'm here today. I'm from Winston-Salem, 724 South Green Street. I'm here today on behalf of Mr. Aubrey Stimpson. He's a resident of Pofftown, named after Mr. Poff, whoever he is. And actually, it happens to be my client's great-grandfather. They've lived there for quite some time and seen the development of Pofftown. And they've also seen what makes Pofftown special and appealing for folks. You saw the development that was going on the bottom of the slide that we looked at earlier. People want to live in Pofftown. They like what Pofftown has to offer. And what Pofftown has to offer for a lot of folks is the historic charm, the rural nature. One of the things that's cool about Winston-Salem, for me as a younger person, was that the compactness of the region, its walkability, its livability was great. We're a pretty compact city for our size. It's one of the things that makes it special and likable, but it's also a challenge because we have to be responsible with what we choose to do with the relatively smaller amount of land that we have to work with compared to others. And so that's why, on behalf of my client and I, we're here to urge the council to adopt the board's recommendation from March and to conclude that ultimately this use, while I would commend the Grandview folks for their efforts, I think they've gone above and beyond what most people would be expected to do in this situation. They've listened to many concerns, but ultimately there's only so much that they really can do, given that this is a rezoning application to take something that was supposed to be low-density housing and instead be a storage facility. And so commending them for their efforts, I would say this is simply not the fit for Pofftown. Once you start urban sprawl, it can be difficult to wrangle that in. So this is a decision that you're making not just for right now and the people that live in Pofftown right now, but for the next 250 years. It's been 250 years since it was founded almost. So I would urge the council to consider that and would urge the council to deny the petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for the opposition that'd like to be heard? All right, we'll go back to the proponents. You'd have 3 minutes for rebuttal if you would choose to use any of that.
Again, this is Nick Blackwood, 804 Green Valley Road in Greensboro. I think as to the conformity with the area plan and the comp plan, those plans are certainly beneficial and should guide your thinking, but they're not set in stone and are really kind of goalpost and a framework for considering these types of requests. So I think in these sorts of circumstances, when you look at what's actually been developed on the ground adjacent to us in that commercial activity center, the fact that this property fronts a major thoroughfare, and there have been a number of zoning conditions added to address the reasonable concerns of neighbors in the area, I think this is a good fit. And if the standard is that the next developer come through and present a project that addresses point by point the concerns that they heard from the neighbors and provides a neighboring homeowners association with a comfort level and with a fix to a problem that they foresaw regardless of how the property was developed, that might not be such a bad thing. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. And would the opposition like to offer anything during rebuttal? Okay, thank you. All right, I will close the public hearing and recognize Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Joines. So this has been quite some time of learning of this particular item, including doing a site visit. The petitioners did reach out to me in my office numerous times, and I can assure you that I have met with them via phone call, Zoom. We've exchanged emails and, of course, welcomed me for a site visit. I tried to make sure that this is something that maybe they did not want to do, particularly when I heard this is going to be another storage unit, because I was like, that's all Winston needs is another storage unit. And so I did, I really did. And I have spent quite some time just trying to peel back the layers of this project. One of the things that stuck out to me, there were several, but one of the things that stuck out to me in particular was kind of going above and beyond and reaching out besides, I think, that 500-foot radius, and I think they did 1,000 feet of trying to do some outreach and making sure that they notified folks that were in close livability to the project site. In addition to that, also in trying to find some common ground with the neighbors, and having been a past HOA president, I do not envy you, Mr. Adcock, for your role. But I also know how important it is for homeowners to feel comfortable and to feel like they do have a voice when development is near. I did not necessarily see where a negotiation like this could take place in the future, particularly with being able to get lots of their, what I would call demands or concerns met by the petitioner. I did ask the president of the Homeowners Association if these needs or demands were not met, would they still be on board? And the answer was no. Commercial sprawl can happen. It just can. Development happens. It's not always a bad thing to happen. We need development. What we don't always have are folks that are willing to be able to meet residents where they are and what is important to them. And that is what struck me about this. In addition to all of the outreach that they did do, and reaching back out to opposition, to folks who were opposed to this at the planning board meeting, and the attempts in which they reached out. So they said they sent emails, and I was like, I'd like to see the emails. And they provided me with those emails. And so, I tried, and at every point that they were tested, they were able to come back with a response. that I believe was favorable. I asked to get names of members for the homeowners association that were on board with this. I got that. And so because of that and more, I actually do move for approval of, one, the statement of consistency for approval of this item, and two, W-3643.
Is there a second? Oh, second by Mayor Pro Tem.
The North Ward second. That's my neighbor.
Any further, Councilmember Clark?
Mr. Murphy, let me offer a comment, then I got a question. I was very concerned when this was voted down by both the planning staff and the planning board. But then we have learned that what we're presented is not in fact what they voted on. And I would respectfully suggest in the future, if there are significant changes, that they cycle back through. Now, having said that, the 80-foot buffer, I think it was a red check area, and then the area west of the dam, so to speak, that is, are those conditions part of it?
Yes, sir, they are.
They are, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Scipio?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. King and Mr. Murphy, is it correct that if we make this change to GBL and that project does not go through, then the new zoning for that land is now GBL? And there's no guarantee at this time that that particular project that was proposed will go through, correct?
If the property is zoned GBL, it would be subject to the conditions and uses that you approved tonight. So should this be approved, the only use that they would have would be storage services retail internal and storage services retail external, and all of the conditions of approval that are in the special use permit and written consent conditions are binding on the property. So while these, while this project in and of itself could fall through, anyone who would acquire the property after that would be subject to the same conditions and limitations on use.
Of whatever we agree to tonight.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second to approve this project. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. And the motion passes 7 in favor, 1 opposed. Councilmember Bowen voting against. Thank you very much, Councilmember Hall. Item G3.
Item G3, public hearing and consideration of zoning petition of 104 Progress LLC and 104 Progress Court.2 LLC from GBS to GBL. Properties located at the northwest intersection of Progress Lane and Progress Court, located in the North Ward. Planning Board recommends approval of petition.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the council chamber who is opposed to this rezoning? Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and I'll recognize Mayor Pro Tem Adams for a motion if she's ready.
Yes. I move for approval of, one, the statement of consistency for approval of this item, and two, W-3646.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Burke. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please vote yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. That is unanimous. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Item G4.
G4, resolution acknowledging the results of the Civil Service Board elections, the selection by the police and fire chiefs, and appointing the 4th member to the Civil Service Board.
Thank you. Assistant City Manager, would you elucidate a little bit on this one for us?
Yeah, so last month, council approved an amendment to the ordinance that created the Civil Service Board to allow for an electronic voting option. As a reminder for anyone watching, the Civil Service Board is comprised of 5 members, 2 that are elected by the police and fire departments respectively. 1 member is jointly selected by the police and fire chief, 1 member appointed by city council, and then those 4 will come together to select their 5th board member. That electronic election happened at the end of April, and the results have been certified. Those certified results are included in your council packet. The police department elected Brent Moyer, and the fire department elected Kelly Emerson. The police and fire chiefs have jointly selected Edward Hosmer as their joint representative on the board. And then the mayor has recommended Reverend Dr. Herbert Miller as the council's appointee. So if approved and council is supportive of that appointee, then those 4 members, we're working to try to schedule a meeting with those 4 in June. So hopefully they can get together in June to select that 5th member and then have that board into full effect in July.
Any questions of Mayor Pro Tem?
Are we on track so far as our timeline is concerned to get this pretty much wrapped up so we can start to do the business of what it's supposed to do?
I can't speak to the original. I don't know what the original timeline is. I might look to the attorney for that. But in terms of the internal timeline we've set forth over the last couple of months, yes, we're moving along. That was one of the reasons we wanted to bring that amendment last month to allow for that electronic voting option to accelerate that process so we can have everybody on board, so that board can get their orientation and then start meeting as necessary in July.
So the action we're asking council tonight is basically to approve Reverend Miller as our representative on there. So I would certainly entertain a motion for that.
I move for approval of item G4.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Taylor, I believe it was. City Attorney.
Yes, I was just going to, thank you, Mayor Joines. Good evening, council members. Mayor Pro Tem Adams, I just wanted to address your question. Yes, we are on track. Initially, when we first started out on this, our target date was to be right where we are. I think we've done a pretty good job in terms of the fact that we've had to do some technical corrections initially to the bill and the ordinance, in addition to our setback earlier this year with the cyber attack. We've continued to press forward so we could get this board impaneled.
We do have a motion on the floor and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by voting yes. Anyone opposed, vote no. That's unanimous. Thank you, council members. Item G5.
Item G5, City Manager's presentation on the City of Winston-Salem proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 budget.
Mr. Payton.
Thank you, Mayor, members, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I know this is the day that y'all always are looking absolutely forward to, of getting the next year's budget. This is one of the most important things that I believe council does each year, is setting the priorities for the upcoming fiscal year as a part of your budget process. So I know that you've got a series of work sessions and public meetings set up so to talk about these things. So this is going to be just a short overview of what's in the budget, as we do have a budget work session for the public tomorrow night, and for you to get the budget, so you'll have that to review before we start the finance budget work sessions on Wednesday. You have already spent a considerable amount of time reviewing the needs of their community, reviewing the needs that staff have brought before you, reviewing needs of various stakeholders in the community, and have worked to establish strategic priorities based on those needs. We've had a lot of conversations with different folks, and I think we've all come back to the same conclusion of the priorities that you have selected and that are shown in this budget as key issues for this community. I'm going to go over those just briefly. The first one of the 4 of those strategic priority areas is good government. With respect to this points back to fiscal planning, making sure that we are keeping our fiscal house in order. I think everybody knows that that's a vital piece of what's going on. Our fund balance amounts from a low 6 years ago of about 10%, we're now up to about 20%, and our unreserved fund balance, that's our money that's set aside to make payroll before the taxes come in, to be available in case of an emergency or some unforeseen emergency need that comes into the city. So that's a great position to be in, to see that growing. Good government also means we want to be an employer of choice, which means we want to be consistent and adequately compensating our employees for the work they do. You proposed a new compensation, or approved a new compensation study last year that we've implemented the first phases, and we will continue to work on that over the next several years. Actually, it'll probably be a continuous basis of working on that year over year to make sure that we're staying competitive in the marketplace. We want to make it a priority to recruit and retain the highest quality staff that we can, talent to serve the residents of this community. So you'll also see in this budget when it's presented some changes in our debt management programs in terms of using more pay-as-you-go funding and less reliance on long-term financing, particularly for things that have a shorter lifespan, like a vehicle or some of our maintenance activities that are ongoing. The second part of the priorities is economic prosperity. You've made a significant amount of progress over the past year, particularly in the housing and economic development programs. You adopted a affordable housing RFP process for multifamily and scattered lot single-family housing that is successfully working to get those folks in front of the federal government for LIHTC projects and the single-family homes moving so that we can put people in those. You have constructed more than 200 affordable housing units over the past couple of years. Another issue, a part of this economic prosperity, in this budget, you will see an emphasis on our homeless issue. So there is a second position that we've reallocated to be a homeless outreach coordinator to serve our needs in that area, which seem to be growing more each and every day. Since 2020, you've created 2,700 new jobs in this community and had over $1 billion in commercial and industrial development. We want to continue those trends. Things like our speculative building revolving loan program will help us do that. That is in place and will continue to be in place. We were also rated as one of the top 100 best places to live. Again, because of our amenities, environment, transportation networks, among other things that are going on. So those are all included and continued in this economic prosperity, including the need to try to make sure that the community as a whole, everyone in the community, has access to economic prosperity and the ability to grow. The third area is community advocacy and engagement. This is, as has already been mentioned tonight, is becoming a much more prevalent issue that we're going to have to continue to focus on in looking to deal with our value relationships with our key partners, particularly our state and federal folks. You've had many discussions with those. We've talked about one of the issues with the state government just recently on the Powell Bill tax. Powell Bill was a senator that actually introduced that tax back in the 50s, I believe, or 60s. So that is ongoing and is a need that we have. Over the past several years, you have secured significant amounts of federal funding for capital projects like the grounds, Runnymede Park, for expansion of the BEAR program, for mental and behavioral health services, for buying electric vehicles for parts of our city fleet, including our bus system. We need to continue those partnerships. Choice neighborhoods is one of the key areas that we will continue to be focusing on over the next several years, and we've had several discussions about that. Our transportation infrastructure and programs to support housing and homelessness are all key parts of this advocacy and engagement. We're also looking to foster civic pride and strengthening relationships with folks in our community, particularly our nonprofit partners who are also facing a lot of these same pressures from the state and federal government that we're facing, unfortunately. The fourth area is livable communities. Livable communities is our enhancing our residents' sense of overall safety, maintaining neighborhood appearance, and supporting the amenities and programs that make this city a community of choice. Along these lines, we've had a couple of things that are prominent, like the Real-Time Crime Center, which is seen on the screen, which continues to attract folks from all over the country and from internationally to look at how we are providing that service and using those services. We also have expanded the drone program in our police department. All of these efforts, and including the BEAR team, all of these efforts are to make our community safer and to free up our public safety officers to do the things that they're trained to do. We also are looking at enhanced housing rehabilitation programs and looking at trying to help people make sure that their homes are in good shape. Over the last several years, since 2020, we've spent $68 million in recreation and parks and public assembly facilities in this community. This year, moving forward, we've got another 19 million in plans to work on projects for this upcoming year. So out of those 4 areas that we just talked about, just bring it down to one more level in terms of what we're looking at in terms of our budget priorities that we've discussed and will continue to discuss. Becoming an employer of choice. We know that it's important for us to maintain the salary and benefits that are necessary to attract the best talent to our community. Maintaining our current service levels, and particularly in transit services. When we went and did the transit bid last year, we brought back to council is that here's what it's going to cost to restore the services that the community had a desire to do, and then here's what it's going to cost for us to get out of the hole that we were in because we were using ARPA funds and fund balance to actually subsidize the transit program. So that is a major area that you'll see us talk a lot more about over the next couple of weeks. Strengthening our financial position. Again, we've talked about that. We want to make sure that we're in a spot that we'll always have the funds available and that you'll know what we're spending our funds on and that we can maintain our credit ratings. And then finishing our currently funded capital projects. It's been a priority of this council before I came, and I think it'll be a priority is to meet the obligations that you've laid out in front of the community, to do those projects that we've issued bonds for or have asked to be approved in bond referendums and in some of our other debt financing. We want to focus on getting those projects done and completed for the folks that are waiting for those before we move on to new projects. Just real quickly, in terms of the employee of choice, I wanted to remind council that we've done a lot of things in that area with your help. We have done an employee survey, so we've gone out to listen to all of our employees to find out what things we're doing well, what things they would like to see us improved. We have, and if you see the survey results there on the employer of choice, we've exceeded national benchmarks in those areas in 83% of the questions asked, benchmark questions. 9 out of 10 employees want to finish their career with the city, and 8 out of 10 would recommend the city as an employer to their family and friends. As we've talked about, you've spent a lot of time helping us with employee compensation and in benefits, and we want to maintain keeping that. You just adopted a resolution to extend our health insurance program for next year which is one of the best health insurance programs, I think, of any provider, local government provider in the country. And then employee vacancies. As you've seen in the retreat and other places, we're doing a tremendous job of actually hiring folks. Our vacancy rate is probably half of what it was just 2 years ago. We're making strides in almost every department, and there's just a few places that we're still seeking folks out. So if you do want to be a police officer, the police department is doing a great job of recruiting. We're actually gaining police officers, but we do have vacancies there that we're still working to fill. We believe we might have the biggest recruit class ever in this upcoming class. It's about to happen. And then the other area is CDL drivers. We are continuing to look for folks that have CDL license, that have the ability and the capability and the desire to work in the field to provide services to our community. Another big issue that we'll probably spend a fair amount of time continuing to talk about is property reevaluation. Just as a reminder, this is a state mandated activity. The state requires every county to reassess all the properties under a certain period of time. Some communities do it more often than we do. I was used to doing it on an annual basis before coming back to North Carolina, but we're doing it on a 4-year basis here. So the good news is over the past 4 years, even though you have no control over what the assessments are at all as a city council, the value of homes in our community has grown substantially. So folks have higher wealth in their homes than they did 4 years ago, by far. So if you're looking to sell your house, that's a great thing. The flip side of that one is if you're looking to buy a house, housing is much more expensive than it was 4 years ago. This heat map does show the blue is kind of the cool areas, which would show the lower amounts. Greens are showing a higher amounts. The yellows and the reds are the highest. So as you go towards red, that's your highest area of valuation growth. So you can see in what is most of our residential areas in the community, there is a lot of growth in values that has been shown there. Residential values are growing faster than commercial and industrial values. Again, you have no control over that, but that does mean that there will be some shift in the tax burden from our commercial and industrial side to the residential side. So folks like you and I that own homes, we will see, just based on a revenue neutral rate, an increase in our property bills in this upcoming year. Let me talk a little bit about the local economy. We were kind of leading into that. As we said, our values are going up. You can see residential construction permit values from 23 to 24 has increased substantially. We're hopeful to see that trend continue in 25. And our non-residential square footage, again, a big jump from 23 to 24. That goes back closer to the normal trend that you would have hoped to have seen there in redevelopment and new development. So there's some major projects going on, the grounds being one of those, which is a huge redevelopment project in our community that hopefully will reap many benefits for us in the long term. And people want to come to our community. The amenities that are here are attracting folks like NASCAR and the Clash, which came during the past year and brought a tremendously successful event to Bowman Gray Stadium and to our community. We are very much a desirable place to live. And as we talked about, livability ranks us as one of the top places to live, and the people that are coming to town verify that fact, that people want to live here. Another issue that's in this budget that we'll need to talk about is the uncertainty. There is quite a bit of concern over what's happening with the economy and how that will ultimately play out. As you can see on the map here, the GDP for the first quarter of 25 was actually lower. It was a negative amount for the first time in quite some time. Our sales tax growth has been fairly anemic. So our retail sector is feeling the burden of things like tariffs and folks' perception as to whether they should be spending money or not. So even if those are short-term places where we'll be with the economy, it does impact this budget and how we're going to make it through this budget. The other major uncertainty, we talked about it several times, is federal and state funding. We know about the Powell Bill funding for roads as a major issue from the state. There are some other issues that the state is looking at that might impact us as well. On the federal side, we know that the preliminary budget that went out shows significant cuts in many of the areas that they support in the community, including homelessness prevention or helping with the unhoused, housing and development activities, our whole range of assistance programs that go on to help folks in this community have a good quality of life are all right now on the chopping blocks, and we're going to have to see what that impact is going to be. This budget, and we've talked with many of you about it, we are assuming that we're going to receive significantly similar state and federal revenues as we have in the past. But we'll have to plan for if those don't come in. But we do need those revenues desperately to support the programs that you've got going on in the community. So it's going to be very difficult to not have those in place. Scott will give you a whole lot more detail starting on Wednesday about all the numbers in the budget, but this is just a real quick overview of what's going on. Our total net budget proposed for next year is $727 million. There are some caveats on that, some accounting changes that we made that are driving that number up higher than they would otherwise, such as paying off some of our leased debt amounts so that payoff will actually result in typically over $1 million of saving per year for the future. If you look at our overall budget, 38%, a little over 36% is dedicated to environmental health, 22% roughly to public safety. Debt management is about 13%, and transportation just under 10%. So that's 80% of your budget. Environmental health, which is basically utilities and sanitation, public safety, police, fire, emergency management, your debt, your capital projects that are ongoing, and transportation, transit, that's transit and your roads projects. If we just look at the general fund, which is what the property tax primarily supports, public safety is almost 52% of the general fund. So when we come back and talk about public safety, and again, I know nobody likes to pay more than they're doing, But of every dollar that's paid, over half of that goes to public safety, to support public safety in this community. Environmental health in the general fund is about 10%. Community and economic development, transportation, and recreation and culture together account for about 22%. They're all about 7% each. So again, that's 80% of your budget in the general fund. 50% for public safety, environmental health, sanitation, about 10, and then you've got parks, transportation, and community development, your planning and those other activities. You will see a lot of major changes on how we do debt, and we'll go into more detail with that, on that, and the various programs and services that we provide in the budget work sessions. The major revenues that support this budget are property tax at about 31%. Charges for services are about 28%. And that's, again, you use bills primarily. There's 17% in reserve appropriations in this budget. And that's, again, to pay off some of our leasing programs and to deal with some of the capital projects that we have ongoing. And then 8% are federal and state revenues. Those four sources, again, that's 90% of your overall budget. And looking at the top area there, property tax, and how that's going to be impacted. You will see in 24-25, we're showing you what the current rate is, 72.5 cents. This budget is balanced with a tax rate of 57.5 cents, which is a 15-cent reduction from the current rate. So while the tax rate is going down, this is not a revenue neutral budget. Unfortunately, if you want to provide the same level of services that we've been providing, we're going to need additional tax revenues. The biggest one there is the transit fund. As we've mentioned multiple times, in terms of a revenue neutral, it's about 2.2 cents higher than the revenue neutral rate just for the transit fund to, again, provide the services that are going on there. I know that we'll have lots of discussions on transit. There's lots of models out there that people are looking at in terms of micro transit activities, doing basically a Uber ride sharing type services. Some of our sister communities are doing some of those issues. We're looking at all of those options. The ones that increase the service by using smaller buses and more point-to-point tend to have increases their ridership, but also increases their cost. And the federal government doesn't support those at the same way that they support the FTA. So one of our advocacy efforts might very well be is to work with the federal government on changing how the FTA works so that we can provide a more efficient service at a better price. The debt service fund is basically revenue neutral, and so the general fund is also not revenue neutral. There's about 2.6 cents in additional funding in the general fund. That is primarily about a little over half of that is allocated to services and personnel cost, and the other half is to maintenance projects that were previously debt funded that need to be funded on a pay-as-you-go basis. And again, I'm sure we'll have lots of discussions about those charts and what that means for individual residents. In terms of the other fees and revenues that we have out there, water and sewer has been recommended by the Utility Commission to go up by 5%, which is less than we've done over the last couple of years, but it is a little higher. Our solid waste disposal, that's what you have to pay at the tipping fee at the landfill, needs to go up $1 per ton. Our stormwater rates are proposed to increase by 4%, again, trying to stay with inflation. And there are a variety of parks and recreation fees, many of which have not been looked at in 10 or more years, that are just not consistent with the market. And so there's some revenue changes there that we'll go over with you in detail, but they don't tend to have a whole lot of impact for the budget as a whole, probably just for those individual users in some of those areas. So in looking at all of that, part of the issue is what are we not able to do in this budget? And there's quite a bit that we can't do that both you've asked about, that the community has asked about in terms of enhanced services or community facilities, that our staff and departments have requested in terms of new personnel, ability to provide services that the community, again, is asking them for in terms of needs. Many things will have to be addressed in future budgets. A couple of areas there in the economic prosperity is the affordable housing area. We have set aside $5 million in this year, and there's another $5 million in next year's budget, or this upcoming year's budget, to continue with the LIHTC and the single-family home program that you've put in place. So we will be able to get through this year with those funds, but then you're going to have to look at what is a priority of funding that in the future and going forward. In the livability area, a big one for us is street resurfacing. We have maintained the funds that we had set aside for street resurfacing last year, which included some slight increases in that. Assuming we don't lose the Powell Bill funds, that would still be in place. But I can tell you that we're probably about $4 million short of where we need to be on an annual basis in terms of bringing our resurfacing schedule down to a level that would be comparable to other communities, at roughly probably a 30 to 35 year schedule of when things would be resurfaced, as opposed to we're probably at least double that right now. In our advocacy and engagement area, there's been a loss. We do not have additional federal funding, what we call the ARPA funding. So there is a significant number of community agencies that are asking for funds from the city from continuing those programs and some of the existing programs. There is no new funding for community agencies in this budget. So the funding for agencies that we've traditionally supported are there, but there's a lot of needs out there beyond that. And that doesn't even include new things that people are asking about on a daily basis, capital campaigns and other activities in the community. Those are not included in the budget. In the advocacy and engagement, we'll also need to continue looking at transit and transportation, as I've mentioned, and how we can advocate for the federal government to continue and the state government to continue providing funds. In the good government area, there's facility renovations and replacements. I appreciate everybody taking the tour and looking at some of our facility conditions. We do have money that we're cobbling together to pay for a facility assessment study so that we can identify what are the highest priority needs. We already know that the yard needs to be taken down back to the bare ground. So we're already looking at how we're going to move individuals out of those facilities into better facilities. But there are also many other facilities. Many of you talked to me about your parks and recreation facilities in some of the communities, the fire stations in many of our areas, older fire stations. There are a lot of facilities that we have that are not in the condition that I think you want them to be in and that the community wants them to be in to be proud as a community. We also have things like Bowman Gray, where we've got the significant amount of new activity going on there that also requires significant investment in those facilities to make sure that they're at, I won't call them state of the art, but at least they're at comparable levels so that we can continue to attract those kinds of events. There's deferred maintenance that we need to deal with in many areas. We need to maintain our compensation packages. All of this needs to be done in an environment of staying financially sustainable and in modernizing our equipment and systems. You will see that what has been funded, the Zenda system, is our HRIS, or Human Resources Information System package, is being updated this year. We made a tremendous amount of IT changes this past year because of the cyber attack. So there are things that are ongoing, but there are many more that need to be dealt with. As we mentioned, there will be a series of budget workshops, public information sessions, and public hearings. And here is a list of those. I'm not going to read them all to you, but starting tomorrow, we will have the first budget public information system at the Carl Russell Center. And on Wednesday, you'll have your first committee of the whole budget workshop. I know that's probably a lot, even in I said I'm trying to do just a quick summary. There'll be a lot more discussion in this. You'll have a full budget and a CIP package for you to take home and hopefully not put you to sleep, but give you some good reading. And we look forward to working with you on getting this budget approved. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pate. Are there any questions that we don't deal with tonight before we get into hearings? But
Just one. Mr. Pate, when you were saying again that we weren't or may not be able to invest or assist with the nonprofits, again, we've heard the figures of the Powell Bill and there are others, community development block grant, whatever. Give me a rough estimate for the public. We're not going to hold you to it. But just because we need to get people to start thinking about, we didn't create this situation, so therefore we are left to trying to figure it out and hold the house whole. So what does that number look like so far as those programs that you listed again or stated, homeless initiatives and whatever?
As we've mentioned to council in the past, when we look back this year, we had about $90 million worth of federal
Say
funds.
the number again, please.
$90 million worth of federal funds that we were looking at, that we were in some phase of hoping that we would get, but had not received those funds yet. On an ongoing basis, it'll probably be a little less than that. Some of that includes some grants and some one-time funds, but 90 million is a huge portion of our budget. And that doesn't count the Powell Bill money that Scott just mentioned, which is another 17 million in the biennium that we may not get. There are some other things that are going through in the state side. The emergency management funds, if disaster assistance funds don't come, you hope and pray that doesn't happen to you. But we are now in the tornado alley for North Carolina. And so and we've seen a lot of incidents happen. So we've got to have resources available to take care of that, because right now we don't see a lot of help coming to us from those agencies or the state and the federal government to help us. But so it's 90 million plus at least probably 20 million that we know of on the state level right now. And that's not counting other things that may be mandated on us coming out of the General Assembly in this session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pate. Mr. Clark had a question.
I just answered mine, thank you.
You did, okay, Mr. Andrew Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Pate, thank you very much. I look forward to reading through my first budget. I just wanted to show my appreciation for, you mentioned the addition for another outreach coordinator for the homeless community with the possible passing of the state bill of 781 of ticketing unhoused on the streets, sleeping. So that's a good start. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pate. We look forward to further discussions. We have next item, please. So it's a public comment period. This is a time that we set aside once per month. We invite citizens to speak to us on matters that are germane to city government. When the comment period is called, each speaker will be given 3 minutes for their comments. If you give your name and address for the record, and we do limit it to a total of 30 minutes, and we will honor that time. Public comments should pertain to issues that are relevant to city government. City council members may not respond to public comments during the meeting, but may address them at a later date or ask staff to follow up. If necessary, speakers are encouraged to be civil and courteous in their language and presentation. Insults, profanity, use of vulgar language or gestures or other inappropriate behaviors are discouraged. Those engaging in such conduct may result in a forfeiture of their remaining speaking times, and individuals who continue to engage in such egregious behavior after being told to cease the same may be instructed to leave the meeting. Speakers may use other avenues to address concerns such as personnel, litigation, and other confidential matters, and we greatly appreciate that. I'll work hard to make sure you can understand me. I understand you had trouble listening the other night, or hearing the other night, and so I'll do my best to speak a little clearer on that. We have a number of individuals signed up, and each one will get 3 minutes. So the first signed up is Matthew Mayers.
Thank you. I'll try not to use any nasty language.
Thank you.
My name is Matthew Mayers. I live at 2844 Wesleyan Lane. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. And I also want to express appreciation to the Neighborhood Services Department, which did, I think, a masterful job at laying out the new system of allocating funds for affordable housing. It was beautiful. Also, thanks to Mr. Pate for his presentation, preliminary presentation of budgeting. That's more or less what I wanted to come speak to you tonight about. It looks like we could be getting into some difficult times. And I don't know about you, but what I do when it looks like things are going to be rough is I look around and think, okay, what are the things I spend money on that I might spend money in a way that will save me money? That's how I often look at it. Luckily, you do have in your possession a really good strategic plan from your sustainability director on how to go about your energy spending. I'm not sure exactly why it's not been put forward for a vote or an acceptance or anything like that. It was called a plan, but it looks more like, I don't know what, a series of recommendations, hopefully not to be lost on a shelf. So Mr. Pate just presented briefly a budget that looks like it's going to be just shy of $728 million. You might consider maybe spending one of those millions on some projects that could be extracted from that report to give everybody kind of a sense of what that means. Let's say you're going to put out a $5 bill and a $2 bill and another $2 bill and a quarter and a penny and a penny and a penny. I'm saying spend one of those pennies on these sustainability projects, especially the ones that the director identified as money saving. A suggestion, if I might, you have the rest of this year before probably the electric vehicle taxes or tax incentives go away. They are available to non-taxed entities like cities. I might spend a lot of, a whole bunch of that money on buying vehicles that are cheaper to maintain and cheaper to run. Save us all a little bit of money over the longer term. And I'll just leave you with a little saying that sometimes people have, and that is, when is the best time to plant your shade tree? I think we know, right? It's 20 years ago. And when's the next best time to plant your shade tree? Is today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Bo Butler.
Bo Butler, 80 High Range Road, Londonderry, New Hampshire. Good evening, city leadership, both appointed and elected. In the most humble and respectful way, thank you for your hospitality and kindness. You have a beautiful city rich in history, and I'm deeply grateful for the welcome. I'm here as a guest of Local 682, visiting from the Live Free or Die state of New Hampshire, where Old Man Winter is still reminding us of who's in charge. Needless to say, I'm loving the North Carolina weather. Because I'm not a citizen, resident, or taxpayer of your community, I will not presume to tell you what to do in your house, at your podium, or in your chambers. That is not my place. This is your home, and I have too much respect for the integrity of local government and the burden you carry as elected leaders and officials. What I offer tonight is simple perspective, qualified by experience. My only goal is to provide insight that might help you make a decision in the best interests of both the citizens of Winston-Salem and her firefighters. I come with facts, and I will leave you with truth. Your firemen share the incommunicable experience of living the passion of its life to its top, while performing their sacred and selfless service to mankind. They sacrifice their youth, they sacrifice their innocence, they sacrifice their health, they sacrifice their time, both precious and finite. They sacrifice their energy and their effort. They sacrifice it all for others, and they sacrifice it all for each other. Your firemen experience the highest highs and the lowest lows. Lows so low that it leaves a residue on the soul. They witness death, destruction, and suffering at levels so intimate that words will forever fail to explain. But out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. You know this. Your firemen, like all firemen, are the light at the tip of the candle. They burn hot and they burn bright. They burn for you and they burn for them. The men and women of the American Fire Service who stand in the breach between life and death, save and loss, they don't need praise. They don't even need a thank you. That's not what this is about. What they need more than anything is support. Your support. Support from their leaders, support from their decision makers, and most of all, support from the citizens they have sworn to protect, up to including the last full measure of devotion in a country whose government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. May God bless you and guide you in your governance. Thank you very much for your hospitality.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Charles Goins, please.
Charles Goins, 118 Pendleton Drive. Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, good evening. I'm a proud captain of the Winston-Salem Fire Department stationed at Engine 16 on Pope Road. I have served this city for 26 years. During that time, I've recruited several firefighters, including my own son, who had offers from 2 other departments but chose Winston-Salem because of the benefits and the legacy of our family service. For the past 10 years, during my recruitment efforts, every single conversation with prospective firefighters that I've had, the one thing I've emphasized is our sick time accrual, because it reflects how the city respects the reality of our 24-hour shifts, the physical and mental toll of this job, and the family sacrifices it requires. That sick time has not just been a selling point, it's been a lifeline. Now there's a proposal on the table that would change all of that. A proposal that would gut the sick time benefit, making it nearly impossible to recruit and even harder to retain quality firefighters. I've already watched recruiting numbers drop from the thousands to the hundreds. If this passes, it could drop even further, and our department will suffer a manpower loss it hasn't seen in its 112-year history. Let me get personal for a moment. My wife is a cancer survivor. Her immune system is weak, and during COVID, despite every risk, I continue to serve this city. I mask up, I got vaccinated, I wore my gear on every call. I got sick. While taking every precaution, I still infected my wife. And because I had earned that sick time, I was able to take the time I needed to recover and then care for my wife and daughter when they needed me the most. That sick time was not a luxury, it was a necessity. The risks we face on this job are not hypothetical, they are real and deeply personal. Now imagine what will happen under this new policy to my son and the many young firefighters who join because of those same benefits. What happens when they get injured on a call, or when they have a sick child at home and no time left to care for them? Under the new proposal, it would take 9 weeks to accrue just 1 day of sick time. 9 weeks. To compare us to a standard 40-hour work week employee is unfair and unjust. We work 24-hour shifts. That means in one shift, we work the equivalent of 3 days for someone else. We are not 40-hour employees. We are firefighters. We respond, we protect, we sacrifice, and we do it without hesitation. What's worse, this proposal seems to overlook North Carolina General Statute 95-25.13, a North Carolina state statute that affirms employers must keep accurate records and hours worked and ensure fair wage and hour standards. This statute supports the fundamental idea that time worked should be time earned. If we are held to a different standard of work, 24-hour shifts, weekends, nights, holidays, then why are we not earning time at a rate that reflects that reality? Council, I ask you to please think about what's really at stake here. Morale, recruitment, retention, family. Please, don't cripple our department. Don't make it hard to serve the people that we love. Thank you. We earn every hour we get. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Will Rivers.
Good evening, I'm William Rivers, 2840 North Glen Avenue, Winston-Salem.
Ma'am, we have to ask you to take the signs down, please. Would you please remove the signs?
Good evening.
If they're not allowed.
Mayor, Mayor
right
Pro
with you,
Tempo, I'm sorry, y'all. Council
Sorry, sir,
members.
just a second, sir.
I'm sorry.
We don't allow the signs in the council chamber. Sergeant at Arms, would you please? Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Sorry about that, thank you.
No, my fault. We'll start you over there.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Temp, members of the council. I'm Captain William C. Rivers, I'm sorry, and I proudly served the city of Winston-Salem for almost a decade. Tonight, I'd like to discuss my concerns for the drastic cuts of our wage benefits, specifically our sick vacation time. I'm coming to you not only as a newly promoted officer in our ranks, but also as one of the employees who have had to utilize these benefits on several occasions throughout my tenure. There are many, but the one that cuts closest to me is the death of my baby brother due to senseless gun violence on January 23rd, 2021. I was actually on shift when he passed, and I had to take 8 shifts off utilizing a combination of sick leave, vacation, and FMLA. But even that wasn't enough because the city went on to record another 43 more homicides that same year, making it a record at that time, many of which I knew the victims personally and their families, and some of even which I responded to, comforting others while I was going through the same pain. I've broken bones, contracted infectious diseases, and even battled COVID-19 on 2 separate occasions, the second of which rendered me extremely ill, all while serving in a capacity as a firefighter in the city of Winston-Salem. Rest assured, I'd like to think that my voice is just a representation of everybody else that works a 24-hour shift and spends a third of their life at the fire station. We do our job and we are not exempt from life happening. We're not exempt from injuries, illnesses, and things happening at home, and I am the real-life example of that. And the city has been good to me up until this point. I really appreciate everything that you all have done and fought for up until this point. But the truth is that possibly under the new accrual rates, had they been adopted then, I may not even be an employee here because of the amount of time required. What I'm trying to say is that time off is not a luxury to us. It provides a means to decompress and gives us the ability to recover and heal. Please recognize that no matter how traumatic the calls are on shift, no matter how early in the morning they start, we still hold an obligation to maintain a high level of readiness for the entire 24-hour period. And this creates a higher level of mental fatigue and burnout. This affects mental health and our ability to serve the community and the public effectively. I understand that something has to be done, but can we please come to the table and find a better resolution than this? Let's not send a message that our first responders and communities that we serve, that our well-being is undervalued, or that the service being taken, that our service is being taken for granted. Please consider voting no for this proposal, and let's put our heads together and come up with a more palpable solution, because we're on the same team.
Thank you, Captain. Liz Riggins, please. Liz Riggins.
Liz Riggins, 135 White Oak Drive, King, North Carolina. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. I'm Firefighter Riggins. I've been with Winston-Salem for 4 years, but my journey didn't start in 2021. I applied in 2019 and I failed because I did not yet understand what it took to be a firefighter. After that failure, I committed myself fully to serving this city. I trained hard to carry that 24-foot ladder, to lift that patient, to drag a person from a burning home. So I ask you, when the time inevitably comes in my 30-year career that I blow out my knee or I tear my shoulder because we can't afford to efficiently staff a fire truck with 4 people, what time am I going to use? Next time I get pneumonia and the flu and norovirus back to back from daily exposures in nursing homes and shelters, what time am I supposed to use? I don't have much time in this department, and under this proposal, if I get badly hurt or sick, I'll burn through my time in months and I'll be left with nothing. We already miss holidays, birthdays, important milestones with our families. Unlike the 40-hour employee, we don't get to come home and share our daily experience with our loved ones around a dinner table. We work 56 hours, and it's in one of the most demanding careers out there. Burnouts and injuries, they aren't an if, they're a when. What this proposal tells me is that the city manager's office doesn't truly value what we sacrifice to do this job, that our well-being and dedication is more of an inconvenience. I want to remind the council of this department's own standard: one team committed to excellence. Cutting our sick time in half isn't excellence. Staffing life-saving apparatuses with only 3 firefighters isn't excellence. Taking trucks out of service rather than pay 30 minutes of overtime, it's not excellence. Those are shortcuts, and shortcuts in our job get you killed. I ask you to hold yourselves to the same standard we're held to, not just for us, for the citizens we serve and the families we risk our lives for every single day. We've lost excellence, and I hope we can become one team again and find it. So please, vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashton Paranello, please.
Ashton Parnello, 1528 Mallory Circle. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members. I'd like to start by asking everyone in this room a few questions. Raise your hand if you have ever seen a body so mangled that you weren't even sure it was a human being. Raise your hand if you've ever held a lifeless child in your arms after trying to resuscitate it back to life, only to give that child back to the parents with the worst news imaginable. Raise your hand if you've ever been in such a hazardous environment that you weren't sure if you were going to make it home to your family at the end of the day. Thank you. That is just a snippet of the very tough job that we face on a regular basis. The true definition of equity refers to fairness and justice in the distribution of resources, opportunities, and treatment, not necessarily giving everyone the same thing, but giving each person what they need to have equal access or outcomes. What the manager's office is proposing is the opposite of true equity. It's trying to bring the fire department to an equal playing field with other departments when we work more hours. We spend more time away from our families. We get exposed to more hazards and cancers than anyone else, thus shortening our lifespans. Let me be clear, perception is everything. And the perception is that this is not about equity. This is about single-handedly and repeatedly attacking the fire department, first with budget cuts to force us into minimum staffing, and now a proposal to cut our benefits by more than half. Let me ask you all this. If you had a son or daughter or spouse working for this department, do you think this proposal is fair? Do you think this will help our recruitment or retention crisis? Does it align with the mission set of making Winston-Salem Fire Department a destination fire department? As a firefighter for this city and the spokesperson as a union president, I will tell you all, I am tired. I am tired of firefighters calling me and telling me they are done mentally, that they want to leave this department, or worse, they want to leave the fire service because they are beat down and feel undervalued. I am tired of tenured firefighters telling me they don't want their sons or daughters to work here. It breaks my heart, and at the same time, it enrages me. What I'm not tired of is being an advocate and a voice for these brave men and women behind me. I will never tire for fighting for their rights and for what they rightfully deserve. I will never tire or deter from our overall mission set of making this fire department a destination fire department. I hope you all make the right decision and choose to back your firefighters who risk their lives to save yours. You never know when you or a loved one will need us. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Dix. Angela Dix.
Thank you, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. As the president of the Ministers' Conference of Winston-Salem vicinity, I stand here before you today on behalf of our coalition of faith leaders, compelled by ethical obligations, moral conviction, and civic responsibility to ensure that these brave men and women are treated with fairness and respect. We're here to respectfully urge you to reconsider the proposed city budget, particularly the provisions impacting the dedicated men and women of the Winston-Salem Fire Department. The proposed changes to sick and vacation time accrual are not only inequitable, but they threaten to revoke time that has already been rightfully earned by our first responders. And let us be clear as well that that's not right. It's wrong. This is unjust. Our Social Justice Committee has diligently engaged with those impacted and furthermore investigated the reasoning behind these changes. We've heard troubling justifications, some suggesting that leadership representation lacks diversity or that certain voices are not seasoned enough. Respectfully, we disagree. Thanks to the efforts of Mr. Perry, we have met with seasoned, committed firefighters who reflect the racial and cultural diversity of our city. We also have been introduced to younger, new members of the department whose dedication and passion underscore the bright future of Winston-Salem's emergency services. Their commitment is not hindered by their age or background. It is strengthened by their courage and integrity. The Ministers' Conference has listened, reflected, and now speaks with unified conviction, a fair, just formula for the best, equitable, most must be protected and restored. Anything less diminishes the value of those who risk their lives for our safety and sends a disheartening message to our entire community. The Professional Firefighters Association is advocating for equitable sick and vacation time, which is not a luxury, as we've heard many times, but a necessity. Adequate sick time allows our firefighters to recover from illness and injury, ensuring that they are fit for duty and able to protect our community effectively. The demanding nature of their work exposes them to traumatic events and high-stress situations, making sufficient recovery time crucial for their mental health and overall well-being. Fair vacation time provides these dedicated individuals with the opportunity to rest, recharge, and spend time with their families, reducing stress and improving their overall well-being. This is crucial for maintaining a strong, effective fire service. The ability to disconnect from the intense pressures of their jobs is essential for preventing burnout, managing PTSD, and promoting a healthy work-life balance. We stand in full solidarity with the firefighters of the Winston-Salem in their efforts to secure these essential benefits. And we call upon you, our elected representative, to do what is just and honorable. Please do not balance this budget at the expense of our invaluable first responders, but let us compensate the employees for the work they do. Thank you for your time, and you make your decisions to be guided by justice, wisdom, and the spirit of service. Thank you all.
Thank you, Pastor. Christopher Dallas, I believe it is. Dallas, excuse me if I mispronounced your name.
Thank you, Mayor. It's okay, I'm used to it. Mayor Pro Tem, council members, my name is Christopher Dallas. I'm a resident of the City of Winston-Salem in the South Ward. I'm also a captain for the City of Winston-Salem, and I've served this city proudly for 12 years. I stand here tonight to strongly oppose the city manager's proposal to cut our leave benefits. WSFD is already, by the city manager's own presentation in April, underpaid compared to our counterparts. Our benefits are our strongest recruiting tool that we have. If you cut that, what do we have left? If you pass this proposal, these cuts will hurt recruitment, they're gonna hurt retention, and they're gonna be the final nail in the coffin of the morale of this department. In my 12 years, the 2015 sick rate accrual, when it was voted on and passed by the city council to help us and bring us back in par with the rest of the city employees, what they did was double our banks. That didn't take into account members that had rolled over vacation and sick bank. It didn't take into account members of this department who have utilized their leave time. One guy at my station lost his wife and was out for 6 months, and then he had surgery and was out for another 6 months. When he came back, he had 40 hours, and he had served this city faithfully for over a decade. He got 80 hours. On April 29th, I went to one of the listening sessions with Ms. Voja, and I appreciate her for doing that. I wanted to understand their side. Maybe there was something I was missing. Maybe there was a benefit to this. So I went in there asking questions. I asked the question of, will this help the city or hurt the city? I asked, how many firefighters are we expected to lose over this? How much will it cost to recruit and train the replacements of those that we lose? Ms. Voja unfortunately had to give the answer, we don't know. We don't have an HR director. So why are we going to vote on passing a resolution that we don't know if it's going to hurt us? This plan also fails basic logic by equating a 40-hour employee with a 56-hour employee. It costs us 3 times as much as a 40-hour-a-week employee to take a day. I'll make it personal for you. In the past several years, my daughter has almost died 3 times. I've had to take 9 shifts each time to care for her while she lay in the NICU and the PICU. Under the current plan, I got that time back in 9 months, the same as a 40-hour-a-week employee. Under the city manager's proposal plan, it would take me 5 years to get each of those times back. 5 years. That's not equity. That's not inequality. That's short-sightedness. Furthermore, the initial presentation by the city manager's office back in April had that they were going to convert our sick bank. On the meeting last Monday, they said that was tabled and sent to legal because there's possible legal repercussions because it violates Department of Labor, both at the state and federal levels. So
Captain,
if they didn't even think about that, why are we voting on it?
Thank you, Captain. Brooke Devanese, I can't quite read your last name, excuse me, but.
DeYoung.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's a hard one. Brooke DeYoung, 3050 South Stratford Road. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Tonight I wear this stole, not a collar, not because I forgot my collar, but because in the Lutheran tradition, a stole is a mark of a deacon in service. It reminds all of us and me that my calling is not to stand above or apart from the people I serve, but to stand with them, shoulder to shoulder. That's what brings me here tonight. I come here not as a representative of the dwelling at 502 North Broad Street, but as a member of a community bound together by shared struggle, sacred dignity, and deep love. At the dwelling, we are a church made up of people who know what it's like to live without shelter. Many of us have experienced homelessness, addiction, mental illness, re-entry from incarceration. We worship together, we eat together, we serve together, and we lead together. At the dwelling, we don't just believe in housing, we believe in human dignity. And that's why every winter we offer the only overnight emergency winter shelter in this city and county. When temperatures drop, when it's not safe to be outside, shelters are full. We open our doors because our people's lives are on the line. No one else is doing this. We are the only emergency shelter. And every year we turn our couches, our sanctuary, and our hearts into safe spaces and homes for our community members. We know the data. We know HUD funding is maybe not coming. We see the rise in homelessness. We've experienced the increased demand in services. But I also know that without emergency winter shelter, our people will die. And I also know that without emergency winter shelter, that emergency doesn't go away. That burden shifts to the wonderful and brave people behind me, to our firefighters, to our police, to our jails, to our other emergency services. And I also know that my people are valuable. They are veterans and parents and artists, and some of them are city workers. They are people healing from trauma, people rebuilding their lives, and winter shelter is not just a roof over their heads, but it's a bridge to trust. Our community doesn't trust easily, but we build that over shared days in the winter. It matters most when it's coldest and darkest. Last winter, the dwelling provided overnight shelter for 645 unique individuals, men, women, and children who would have otherwise been sleeping in cars, tents, or on sidewalks. People who would have otherwise frozen. I'm not here to request charity. We know the budget is tight. I'm here because it's about partnership. We can't do this alone. We have been partners with the city on emergency winter shelter before, and we want to continue doing that. And I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Adams and Councilmember Scott Andre Bowen for helping us and being support in that. So as you consider your budget for the year, please consider my people. Thank you.
Very much. Nick Childress. Nick Childress.
Hi, my name is Nick Childress from 1661 Light Street. I'm here on behalf of the dwelling itself, and I'm a part of the dwelling community. I want to tell you a little bit about why it matters to me, but not just me, to a lot of the people in our city. First time I came to the dwelling, I didn't know what to expect. I heard it was a church, but not like any church that I've ever grew up with. What I found was something different, something real. People laughing, eating together, praying, sharing stories. Some have homes, some did not. Some were in recovery, some were still in the middle of it. Some came with joy, others came with grief, but all of us belonged. The dwelling is about fixing people, it's about seeing people, listening, showing up. It's a place where no one has to pretend to have it all together. It's a place where you're reminded that you're good enough just as you are. And it's not just on Sunday mornings. It's hot meals, showers, help with the resources, shelter, support when life gets heavy. It's music, storytelling, but more importantly, truth-telling. I've seen people who were invisible finally be seen. I've seen people get clean. I've seen people reconnect with their families. I've seen people find hope again. So the dwelling matters because it's a place where people find life again. If you're curious what that looks like, we have block parties every Wednesday starting in July at 6 o'clock. Come join us. But homelessness, it's hard for this city. We can't do it alone. and you can't either. So I'm not asking for necessarily partnerships, but friendships. Come be with us, see what we're about, and let's fight it together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for one more speaker, Cynthia Herson. Cynthia Herson.
Greetings, everybody. Sorry I don't have time to tell my name because I got into my time. Thank you. I stand before you today believing we live in a nation founded on the powerful idea that government exists to serve the people, not the other way around. I thank the fire department, and we do support you all. And in fact, they help keep our building standing because it caught on fire twice in my apartment because of a defective stove, and they was there right on time. So I support them in their endeavor, whatever they are doing. We, the taxpayer, have an unwavering right of the people to be heard, and y'all have a duty to want to hear and to let our voice be heard. We expect y'all to make decisions in our best interest. Our elected officials know they must answer to the people and act with integrity. Democracy does not work if we, the people, are kept in the dark. It does not work if power is hoarded by the few instead of shared by the many. Democracy cannot function unless the voice of the people is heard clearly, loudly, and unobstructed. Every citizen, no matter where they come from, must have a seat at the table, and you all are denying us a chance to sit at that table. When the people's voice is silenced and barriers are put up to keep folks from speaking their truth, that is not democracy. That is not America, land of the free, and must not be Forsyth County. We are here to demand accountability. We are here to demand accountability from the elected officials. Let's have transparency in every decision that affects our lives. It is the sacred right of the people to be heard without interference. When leaders are held responsible, when citizens can speak, that's when democracy works the way it should. That's when Forsyth County will be at its best. And with my last time remaining, could y'all tell me who signed off on Baldwin being our property manager? Did y'all not research and get his reviews? Did y'all not research the people he already has property? And did y'all not check with those people to see how he has treated those people and his properties? We did not have a seat at that table, and I don't know why we was not included to at least voice our opinion on who and why we gotta keep having so many different property managers. What is wrong with you all? That is y'all property, and why you all couldn't give it over to us if you all do not want to take responsibility for it. But I'm gonna tell y'all again, I refuse to be homeless. I refuse to let y'all poor people keep on sitting on y'all butt and letting us not have a voice at the table. You all are governed by us, not you all governing us. You all need to recognize y'all place and standing and where y'all are elected to be. With real talk, y'all better stop messing with me.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison.
Thank you.
That ends our public comment period time. We do have a need for a closed session. I recognize Mr. Clark for a motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Winston-Salem City Council go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-31811A4 to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses within the city of Winston-Salem.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor of the motion go into closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We'll go in closed session.
It was, yes. And it was just, Lord, oh my.
Give me 3 more people out here.
Who else we need? How many more?
Need 2 more. Can I get a motion to end closed session?
Make a motion to end closed session.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Motion by Councilmember Joyner. All those in favor of ending closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Scipio. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. We are adjourned.
Let me get on.